Microphone on. Okay. At this time, I'd like to call to order the meeting of the Community Development Recommending Board. This is Carmela Shawn Miller, Chair of this wonderful, outstanding committee of citizen leaders at this time. Clerk, would you please call roll? Thank you.
Chair Miller.
Present.
Co-Chair McKnight.
Present.
Member Marlin.
Present.
Member Haddad.
Present.
Member Prado. Excused. Member Whittingham.
Present.
Member Lathrop.
Present.
Member Burks.
Present.
Member Paola.
Present.
Member Jackson.
Present.
Member Thomas. Excused. Member Conyers Shutt. Member Rice. Excused. Thank you, Chair. You have a quorum.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that. Also, we are in compliance with the open meeting law.
Yes, we are. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We'll move on to agenda item number 3, public comment. Comment during this portion of the agenda must be limited to matters on the agenda for action. If you wish to be heard, come forward and give your name for the record. The amount of discussion as well as the amount of time any single speaker is allowed may be limited. Is there any public comment at this time? Seeing none, we'll move on to agenda item number 4, a report by Colleen Dewigger, Grant Program Coordinator on Housing and Urban Development, HUD, Federal Grants and Allocation of Federal Funds. Ms. Dewigger, if you're available, the floor is yours.
Colleen Dewigger, Department of Neighborhood Services. The City of Las Vegas's grant application process began on October 16, 2023, with the posting of a request for proposal, RFP, for agencies seeking program funding from the city's allocation of funds for housing opportunities for persons with AIDS, HOPWA, and the Community Development Block Grant, CDBG. The grant funds for each of these programs were designated as 2-year grants, which were designed to provide funds for selected agencies in fiscal years 2024 to 2025 and 2025 to 2026. The approximate amount of funding for HOPWA is $3 million, and the approximate amount of funding for CDBG is $775,000. Interested agencies were asked to attend one of 2 technical workshops held on October 24, 2023. The RFP closed on November 16, 2023, and the Community Development Recommending Board, CDRB, received eligible applications for review on December 4, 2023. The CDRB met on February 12, 2024 and February 14, 2024 to hear presentations from applicants who met grant eligibility requirements. After applicant presentations, the CDRB submitted scores for each eligible applicant in Neighborly software. At this meeting, the board will consider funding for programs that met the established scoring threshold of 65% of the total available points. The total available points for HOPWA was 210 points, with a threshold for funding consideration of 136 points. The total available points for CDBG was 200 points, with a threshold for funding consideration of 130 points. The program applications have been ranked based on points earned. The board will deliberate on funding recommendations that will be presented to the City Council for approval. At this time, I would like to ask all board members to disclose any potential conflicts of interest you may have with any of the agencies being considered.
This is member Dave Marlin. I currently work at Vegas Stronger, which is on the CDBG list, so I'm expecting to, I didn't score them, nor do I expect to engage in any way the conversation about it.
This is Robert Lathrop. I've previously indicated my conflict with the Desert Spring Community Resource Center, family connection there, and the Family Promise of Las Vegas, which I'm pretty heavily involved in. Both of those I did not score and will not participate.
Excuse me, Member David, I believe you need a disclosure as well for Help of Southern Nevada and Salvation Army.
I previously, thank you. My name is Dave Marlin. I was on the board of Help of Southern Nevada for just about 15 years, but I have been separated for them for 2. So I did score Help, expecting that was enough time. Similarly, I was a counselor at Salvation Army, although that was now over 10 years ago. So I continued and scored those, but I appreciate you allowing me to, I guess, mention that reminder.
Deputy City Attorney Chris Levy, allocate for the record. Member Marlin did mention those disclosures initially, and it would be permissible for him to vote on those items. Thanks.
All righty, thank you very much. Does anyone have any other disclosures? All righty, thank you, Mr. Wigger. All right, we'll move on to agenda item number 5, discussion for possible action regarding the scoring and recommendation allocations of fiscal years 2024, 2025, and 2025, 2026 funding for the Housing Opportunities for Persons with AIDS HOPWA grant. If you'll look to your screens, as well as the papers in front of you, members, you will see the ranking of the applicants. You'll see our scores individually as well as the administrative scores and the total scores, the risk assessment, and the amount requested. Again, as mentioned by the city, we have $3 million. Correct me if I'm wrong, Ms. Jewger, that was the amount, and as the top score was possibly 210 with a threshold, was that correct, of 136? Am I saying that properly, ma'am?
The amount of funding is correct. This is Colleen Duiger, Neighborhood Services. And for HOPWA, yes, the total points were 210, and each of the agencies that applied had met the threshold for consideration.
Thank you. Give everyone an opportunity to look at the ranking. And then I will entertain anyone to begin the discussion. The chair recognizes Mr. Whittingham.
Good morning, fellow board members and staff. Having read and heard the presentation from Golden Rainbow, I'm not surprised that they are ranked number 1. And without further discussion from my point, I move that the board approve the funding of $300,000 as requested for Golden Rainbow services.
This is Linda Burks. I agree.
Okay, so currently on the floor, we have a motion and a second. Member Burks, you're seconding the motion?
Yes, I second.
Second for a recommendation of full funding for Golden Rainbow based off of their scoring of 200.08 out of a potential 210. We've had a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? I'm correct? I'm doing that right, correct? I'm make sure I'm doing that right. Is there any further discussion? Okay. Seeing none is, okay, I guess I'll put that up to a vote. I don't see any discussion. All those in favor, I'm assuming we're doing a voice and a hand vote. Madam Clerk, do you need to have both?
Correct, a voice vote and a hand vote.
Okay, verbal and hand vote. All those in favor signify by hand and verbal. Is that aye and hand vote?
Aye.
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 Member Burks, do you have your hand up? Did you vote aye?
Yes. Second.
Thank you.
You said that one was easy. All righty. Okay. Again, I'll open up the floor. Is someone do my math?
Excuse me, Chair. Really quickly, Deputy City Clerk, I just wanted to confirm that the motion did pass.
Thank you very much. Appreciate you. Okay. Assistant Chair McKnight, do you have, the floor is yours, sir?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'd like to, I guess, taking Member Woodham's same lead, going ahead and recommending Women's Development Center for full funding of $650,000 on their request. They too scored the second highest score.
I move to second.
Okay, we've had a motion to recommend the Women's Development Board for full funding at $650,000 by co-chair McKnight and seconded by member Whittingham. Is there any discussion? Okay, seeing none. We've had a motion and a seconded. All those in favor, please signify by voice and hand. All those in favor signify by saying aye and raising your hand. Aye. Aye.
The motion passes.
Thank you. Okay. Rank number 3, access to health care, HOPA program, is the third rank. Anyone want to open up a discussion on their request and the amount? Again, I want to bring to your attention the total of all of these wonderful programs. We are over by $1,653,433,433.43. So now we must become creative with our mathematics. And the chair recognizes Ms. Haddad.
Thank you, Patricia Haddad. So what I'm thinking here is to, in a moment, make a motion to also approve access to health care, and then might propose to have some discussion looking at the next couple of 3, because I think if that puts us at about $400,000 left to go, if my head math is correct, then, we see a more of a jump down when we get into the medium risk sort of group here, and also want to hopefully put into some consideration. So I would add the 965 into that column. So looking at those 3, getting to our number, and then, I think one thing that I have really valued about this board and some of our funding cycles is the commitment to, when possible, fully funding proposals. So, moving forward with that one, and then, like I said, having a discussion about sort of the next 3 down, recognizing that there will be a limited amount of funds to go around from there. So maybe, should I go ahead and do a motion on that?
Yes, but I want to go ahead and
Yes.
give Member Pallo an opportunity to speak also. Member Pallo, the floor is yours.
Yes, Member Lena Paula, I did have some concerns with this amount. This was the one group that I really had concerns with. I thought that it was a large amount of funding for not providing any housing. It was only health, nutrition, and it wasn't even a food giveaway. It was just literally counseling. So I do recommend that we reduce funding. I have not figured out a dollar amount, though.
Valid point. Any other member have anything to add to the conversation as we go through where we are? Does anyone have their head math together to know where we are right now? I'm trying to do this where we are in our number right now. Are we at 9:50 right now?
Yes.
Okay. I was just making sure my math was together. Okay.
Chairwoman,
Yes.
I'm way
Yeah,
down here.
Down.
like looking at it.
Good
Member
morning.
Thomas?
Kathy Thomas for the record. I appreciate the perspective of the HOPWA dollars not completely being used for housing, and I think in the future this board could set that as a priority, but because we did not say that as part of the application process and the services are an eligible use of the HOPWA dollars, I want to reward low-risk partners coming forward who have a good program design that actually does meet the federal requirements. And I agree, in the future, we may want to say, use HOPWA for housing and ask other community partners to do the wraparound services part. Since we didn't do that in this particular round, I don't want to, in a sense, penalize what is a low-risk partner that had a good program design that came in with services and not exclusively housing. And so I want us to think about maybe in the future prioritizing and rewarding HOPWA applicants who do housing primarily or exclusively with these very limited dollars.
Thank you, Member Thomas, and that is one of the beauties of this board, is those are the kind of suggestions we made, such as interaction with memos of understanding and collectively getting together and client services. So point well taken. And of course, this being public record, it'll be there for us to look back at. Thank you very much. Anyone, go ahead, the floor recognizes, Chair recognizes Member Powell again.
Yes, Member Lena Paola, initially wanted to reduce funding greatly for this partner, but understanding the circumstances that were just mentioned, maybe we consider a smaller reduction because we still need to reduce 1.7 throughout the next, 5 people.
You are correct. Do you have a suggestion we can start with so we can discussion?
I'm sorry.
Oh,
Go ahead.
go ahead. Okay. Chair recognizes Member Whittingham.
Thanks. This is Member Whittingham. I think it's Haddad, Ms. Haddad, Patricia. I'm inclined, in fact, I was looking at the ranking, and from not just the ranking for me, but also the presentation and reading all the documents, I'm inclined to agree with Member Haddad's initial suggestion of providing full support for the top 3. The low risk is a factor. It reflects overall, in terms of their overall compliance and the service that they provide, and the fact that they, not just the application, but in terms of the data that they provide and how we quantify the effectiveness of their service and the need. I think all that goes into their low ranking, and it's good that we reward them for that, and then after maybe providing full support for the top 3, then we can then take a look and see how we divide the rest for the those that are in the medium risk. And there are some there that we have some concerns about. I have some concerns about. But I think in summary, I would support and maybe ask fellow members to also consider and support the motion to approve full funding for the top 3, and then we will take a look at the remainder and see how that is divided and prorated and what percentage is allocated to the bottom 4.
Chair recognizes Member Powell.
I was going to suggest the amount, but
we're still in discussion phase. You may do so.
I was going to suggest a $200,000 reduction.
Okay, is that for access to healthcare?
Yes, so 765, 650. And that still won't even get us near where we need to be. I mean, we have a far way to go.
Okay. Where are we at? Okay.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Okay,
Yeah, it
I'm
is
looking at
on.
the screen. I'm looking at my piece of paper and I'm looking at the screen. Okay. The chair recognizes Member Thomas.
I appreciate the suggestion of the 765. I'm inclined to agree with Member Whittingham to fully fund the top three, and that then gets us into a really meaty discussion about the medium risk applicants. And they're medium risk for different reasons, and so we have to maybe discuss why one type of risk gives us pause as opposed to a different kind of risk. At least two of them are long-standing participants in the HOPWA program, and for them to continue to be medium risk suggests an opportunity to deeply reduce the amount awarded and give the newer applicants who are medium risk an opportunity to set a track record. So if I know we're still in discussion, but if Member Whittingham wants to make a formal motion to fully fund the top three, I will second it.
And out of appreciation for the initial conversation, I will defer to Member Haddad to so move for approval as she had initially indicated.
The chair recognizes Member Haddad.
Yes, if there's no other discussion, if the chair feels it's appropriate, I would move to fully fund access to health care and then kick us off into a conversation about the medium risk candidates from there with the remainder of the funds.
Okay, is there a second? We have a motion on the floor. Chair recognizes Member Thomas.
Seconded.
Okay, we have a motion and a second on the floor.
Excuse me, Chair.
Yes.
Deputy City Clerk, we need confirmation as to what the full amount is. For
The full
motion.
funding, the full amount, Member Haddad, would you say the full amount, please, for the record, for the full funding?
Yes, Patricia
Thank
had
you.
at $965,650.
Okay. So we have a motion on the floor for full funding for access to health care in the amount of $965,650. It has been seconded. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please signify by voice and hand by raising your hand and vocalizing by saying aye.
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 Chair, are there any opposed?
Are there any opposed?
Aye.
The motion passes.
Okay. Now I will entertain as we discussion about medium risk before we look at the other, is that 4 agencies under our HOPWA applicants of our concerns in terms of medium risk. I think we started a vigorous conversation. Who would like to begin? And I think I see Member Thomas, is that your light I see shining down there? Or someone else's light? Oh, that's someone else's light.
But since you called me, I can jump right in.
Go right on.
This is Kathy Thomas for the record. As I'm looking at the next applicant, which is Aid for AIDS of Nevada, they have been a participant in the HOPWA program for as long as I can remember, 20 plus years. And so it concerns me that an experienced, well-established agency continues to have risk issues around financials and submitting reports and audits and a number of other things that were indicated on the risk profile. And so I'm concerned that we keep funding partners who keep having the same, not different, but actually the same issues year after year. It's gone beyond being a yellow flag. It's a red flag for me when established partners continue to have the same issues repeatedly. And so I'm concerned about funding them at all, particularly if I'm not, and maybe this is a question for staff, since they submitted their application and the reviews have been completed, it might be helpful if it's appropriate, City Clerk, to ask sort of the status of some of those issues as we review them today, because I know they may have made some efforts since they submitted the application, and they indicated that they were doing so in their oral presentation. But I think it should give us pause to see these issues being repeated year after year with lots of technical assistance being provided by city staff.
Hi, Gina Candelario, Department of Neighborhood Services. In regards to the audit, they're compliant now, and their spending is on track. They should be at 50%, they're at 53%. They're inquiring about an increase for this year, so they are on track.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other member like to add to any of the other agencies that you may have concerns with that fall under medium risk? This is Chair Miller. Co-Chair McKnight.
This is Mac McKnight for the record. Would it be possible, as far as like the staff mentioned, where that everything was in compliant? How do the other three currently? Are they in compliant now, or is one of them, or who? Do you mind giving a quick just synopsis of the other three?
Gina Candelario, Department of Neighborhood Services. The only other, you're speaking about agencies, correct? EOB, Economic Opportunity Board, they are still in compliant. No one else had audit, they weren't in compliant with their audit. And then the other concerns are like timeliness or on track with spending. Just one began their grant for fiscal year 23-24 late, not until September. And then AFAN was on track. They started July 1 as they should. And then CPLC started as well July 1.
Hi, this is Jamie Jackson, and I don't have the history of some of these funders, but I just want to piggyback sort of on what Ms. Thomas said. And if the organization that we're talking about is not being compliant year after year after year, I too wonder why we continue to award them the grant when they absolutely know what the requirements are for funding. So I would recommend a reduction in funding.
Thank you, Member Jackson.
Hi, sorry, Gina Kendall. I just want to confirm, EOB is not in compliant. They still have outstanding audits, just in case that wasn't clear.
And that's EOB? Did I hear that properly?
Yes, EOB.
Okay. And I want to make sure I understood also, City, you said that the Just One project didn't start their rent until September, is that correct?
Yeah, it began October 1. They ended their fiscal year 22-23 in September. So, sorry, October 1.
Okay, thank you. I'm sorry. Member Burks?
Hi. I thought I would throw this out there since the last four are all medium, and we have a deficit on what is being requested. Could we start by a reduction across the board on those four, 20%, 25%, and then see where we're at with money?
You sure can. Go ahead. That's why we have the screens. Let's throw the spaghetti on the wall. Let's see what we got. Let's see what we got.
I need more than 50.
Yeah, it'd almost be.
Does any board member have a number they'd like to throw up there just to take a look at?
50%. This is Jamie Jackson.
What would that be, 120? I'm seeing, is that Member Jackson? Is that your microphone that's on?
That's correct.
Oh, okay. Member Winningham?
As I look at the numbers that we have, the amount we have left, and just to maybe across the board, my suggestion, subject to further discussion, would be to award EOB 50% of their asking, which would be $125,000. That would leave us with maybe about $959,350. We divide that equally in three ways, and it would maybe give us $319,783 and some change for each of the other ones. So, again, award EOB 50% of the asking, which will be 125, and divide the remainder into three equal parts, and that would come out to maybe about 319,783 and some change for each of the other three, which will be a reasonable reduction in their asking, especially AFAN, which I have some real concerns about. The Just One project, and so I think that would be, I'm suggesting that the board consider this as a reasonable reduction across the board for the other three.
Okay. Chair recognizes Member Powell.
I just hit the wrong calculations, but from what I saw, doing 50% across the board, it looks like only 410,000. So I think we definitely need to start with the 50% across the board, not just EOB, if I was understanding that correctly.
No, it was for the reasons that the clerk talked about EOB. We have some concerns about all four. EOB is still not yet in full compliant. And so we reduce that, especially by 50%. And looking at the amount that they're asking for, and EOB is the least among them. And so looking at the amount that they're asking for to proportionately reduce those, and to, after we reduce EOB by 50 and awarding them 125,000, we will have enough left, like I said, about 959,350, and then divide that equally into three parts, and it would end up with about $319,783 change.
Does it look like we're a penny over? Is that what that says? If I'm looking?
I'm sorry?
Are we a penny over?
We are.
Look at her penny over. We're a penny, no, we're a penny short.
We can get that.
We're a penny short. We're a penny under, right? We're a penny under in the red. Okay. I'm making sure I'm reading the column properly. Yeah. Okay. Member Haddad, and then Member Marlin, if you want to add to the conversation, please.
Patricia Haddad, so that was pretty impressive math at a penny balance. Just one thing I want to throw out there is that, yes, all of the organizations listed here have submitted applications. It is not necessary that every single organization is funded. So, I mean, this is definitely one way to go about it. I just want to throw out to folks on the board, though, that you can sort of move the numbers in a different way to fully fund. The piece that I question is, you know, as someone that has been on the receiving end of grants that have been reduced for funding, at a certain point, the advocacy goes down when you're not funding at a certain threshold, right, to get the work going or to sustain the work in a meaningful way. So I worry about a reduction of that much of their request. I mean, a lot of folks did go up here and say, look, we'll work with what we've got, and I know that organizations will definitely do that, right? They will work with the resources, but I just wanted to throw out that it is also an option for our process to, you know, not fund any particular organization in order to get closer to the requested number for others.
Thank you. Member Marlin?
My name's Dave Marlin. I wanted to commend Member Whittingham for coming up with what looks to me like a fair reduction for the medium risk providers, and I just wanted to thank him.
Appreciate it. And if I may, just since we're in the discussion phase, just briefly comment on the very good point that Member Haddad made. But looking at, for the same reasons that she mentioned, instead of totally removing the fund or say not funding totally any of them, for the same reason that you mentioned, that, you know, they have requested this amount based upon their expenditure. And so in spite of their the concerns that we have for their performances, as it were, I think without repeating the argument, I think that the reduction as proposed will send the appropriate message in terms of the need for all of them to be more diligent in complying with the rules and to ensure that they satisfy the requirements sufficiently so that we can see improvement in the coming years. So with that, the question is, if the city attorney or the staff has did the correct math, should we now go individually and move to recommend the approval of the reduced percentage to each, or is it a case where if the board agrees with the conversation or with the proposal to reduce as per the number given, should we do that in bulk or should we do individually based upon the amount that we have agreed to allocate? Individually, I'm thinking.
Yeah.
Yes, okay. Okay.
It sounds like individually would work easiest, but since we're talking about percentages for some and a different number for some, maybe, I don't know, if somebody's doing the calculations, it wants to go through and see what that percentage would be for each.
Yes.
So that the board is clear on what those numbers are.
I think this is Chair Miller. I think I'm looking at the screen, and correct me if I'm wrong. Member Whittingham, if I'm looking at the spreadsheet, is for the medium risk is a 30% reduction correct? Member Brooks is a 20% reduction
They're funding at 30.
with the funding for the medium risk? Or
So-
am I confused? Maybe I'm,
No, it wasn't so much a percentage. It was more to divide a portion of, well, it was more to allocate a certain amount to one of the four, which is $125, and then to divide the remainder in 3 equal parts to the other 3, and it seemed as if that will work out to 319,783 for AFAN, the same amount for Just One, and 125 for EOB, and 319,783, 33 for CPLC, and we would have an extra cent left. and so we can add that cent to one of the 3 to make it, instead of 33, make it 34, and then we would be equal. Am I correct on that math? Staff?
Deputy City Attorney Chris Levy for the record. I see that, I'm not sure who's putting the percentages in here, but it looks like the percentage, if we're dividing up the balance, it would be about 53% to the first medium risk applicant, 31% to the second, 50% to the third, and 37% to the last. So that's if you were looking at the entire remaining balance. Is that what the board is looking to get the calculations for?
That's what I'm proposing. Member Whittingham.
Member Marlin, I second it.
okay.
And can the staff just update those percentages in the chart? It looks like those are not accurate to what Mr. Whittingham is requesting, just so they're all aware.
So there is a motion on the floor?
No,
I don't think is there a motion?
there is not.
Okay, there's not a motion to second, I don't think.
I'm going to retract my second.
Oh, yeah, that's what I'm saying. We're still doing math, to my understanding.
And I have some calculations here.
Yes, who has
So
some
I've done
calculations?
40%, 30%, and 33%, 35%, excuse me.
And that's Member Powell,
Oh,
right?
sorry, yes.
Okay.
I definitely think we'd want to look at a percentage across the board first, because to reduce somebody 700 and then somebody 100,000 is extremely concerning.
Okay, so okay, so if I'm looking, your numbers aren't filled in yet, so do you have those numbers? You want to go ahead and add those? Is your microphone on, ma'am? So that
I'm
the
sorry, I'll
clerk can hear
transfer
you.
them over.
Yeah,
Give me a
I'm sorry.
And just for point of clarification, Madam Chair.
Yes,
I
ma'am.
think the place that the clerk is asking for the percentages is not under the board member's name, but below where it says percentages pertaining to medium. Those percentages are not accurate.
Yeah, that's what I thought, because I
So
heard a
I
different
don't know
number.
who's typing, but whoever's typing, that's where someone's asking the correct percentages to be entered. Can the clerk or attorney read what she just read, percentages-wise?
Yes, Deputy City Attorney Chris Levy for the record. I did notice those percentages are not accurate. It looks like they're being entered in, updated now. I just passed the paper down.
Can I?
No, I'm sorry.
Can I, for clarification, and maybe get the correct number on the screen for all of us to see? If we were to award AFAN $319,783.33, what percentage of 600,000 would that be?
I can give you the percentages if you'd like, Member Whittingham, at 35%. Do you want to hear those numbers and you want to enter those?
Yeah, I was thinking of the staff, so that the staff could enter that on the screen for all of us to see.
The balance or percentage of the request. That's what we're talking about right now.
I was speaking of percentage of the requested amount. Are you speaking of percentage of the balance?
The idea is to divide, after we have awarded the top three, the amount requested, we have a balance of approximately $1,084,350. And then the suggestion was looking at the presentation, the evaluation, the risk assessment for the bottom four. We would give EOB 50% of the ask, so that would be 125. We're certain about that, 50% of the ask. My next question is, if we were to give AFAN $319,783.33, what would be the percentage of 600,000 as they requested? What would be the percentage? That's what I'm asking. And then do the same thing for the other two. Staff, I just want to make sure that I'm clear. Is that understood, staff?
May I, Member Whittingham and Chair Miller, I think the confusion is the 33% or the other funding is dividing what was left over after funding the top three fully and funding AFAN at 50%. The recommendation from
AFAN.
I'm sorry, EOB, thank
Right.
you.
Right.
Funding EOB, funding the top three fully, funding EOB at 50% of their request. The remaining medium risk applicants would then divide what is left from the $3 million pot by three, and each of them are getting a third of that, not a third of their request,
Right.
a third of what's remaining in the pot.
Right, which would amount to 319,783, yeah, for each. And so the question was, for the purpose, in responding to the city attorney, if we are required to say the percentage of how much they ask are they receiving, then my question to the staff is to calculate that 783% of each of their asking and indicate what that is for us all to see.
Deputy City Attorney Chris Levy-Gallagher, for the record. It does look like staff has gone through and corrected the percentages in the chart. So the first percentages you see there, I hope answers the first question. But to your question raised at this point, you do not need to specify the percent.
Okay.
If the board is deciding to reduce based on a percent across the board, then that should be a part of the discussion. But if you guys just want to award by dollar amount, that's sufficient.
Okay, good enough.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Chair. Member Powell and Member Haddad. Oh, are you
want me to go?
Yeah, go ahead. Yes, ma'am.
Member Lena Paola speaking. Are we able to put in my column what 35% would be? Because I have the percent, I have the numbers, the values. So for AFAN, it would be 210. I don't have control over the spreadsheet, so. Are you able to enter it under, who's entering? Oh, thank you, sorry. I'm sorry.
Tim Glesson, Grant Program Coordinator. Can you just repeat that?
Yes, so for AFAN, if you can enter 210,000. The Just One project, 359,268.40. Sorry.
It's 359,000, and then what was the rest of it?
359,268.40. 87,500 for the next one. And then 301,450 and 90 cents. 455, sorry. And then going back up was 210.
Wait a minute.
You got an extra zero.
I was like, wait, what happened? What did I do?
There's an extra zero in there, I think, yeah.
And this is member Paolo, not Haddad.
I just want to see what deficit we're at that point. 455.90. Okay, and that was at 35%, so everyone could see those values. So I was looking at the 33, that's why how I came up with closer to 33%.
Okay. Member Haddad, do you have your own different figures to add in there? Okay. Is that Member Burks? Yeah, Member Burks.
For Lena's numbers, our deficit would be 300,000, is that correct? 317?
We're still at 3, yeah. So that's why I was saying the 30, maybe closer to 32, 33%.
Yeah, I actually like this formula. I don't know if we could whittle it down a little bit because they're all very similar risk. And I know EOB has their problems, but I was really moved by the fact that they funded all of their clients with their own, moving their own money around, and I think they really have a shot at doing better. So I know it's probably optimistic, and anyway, I like this formula a little bit better.
Okay. Chair recognizes Member Haddad.
Thank you. So looking back, I think, and thinking about sort of how I, was understanding the applications and risk assessments and presentations, and for me, actually, I think proportionately, I'm supportive of the values that are under Member Whittingham's column here. I think I actually feel pretty comfortable, again, looking at how it sort of broke down. I know that there's still maybe some conversation that may want to be had in the other column potentially to get us closer. I'm not sure if we're there yet, but so I don't want to jump ahead of anyone, but if Chair, if you're ready to entertain a motion, I'm ready to make one.
Okay, so I'm looking, I want to make sure I have this correct. So I'm looking at the first number presentation by Member Whittingham. Then I'm looking at a set of numbers presented by Member Paola, and then a set of numbers by Member Burks, and then a set of numbers by Member Jackson. Is that correct? Yes? Is that what I'm looking at? Okay. So you're, Member Haddad, you're ready to make a motion to take a vote on which numbers that you're aligned with, and see if we can get a second?
Okay. Could you scooch the spreadsheet back over a little bit? Yep. Okay. So Patricia Haddad, I motion to fund AFAN housing at $319,783.33. Just One Hopwa at $319,783.33. The EOB Hopwa Assistance Program at $125,000, and the CPLC Lucis Program at $319,783.33, and would ask staff to figure out how to deal with that extra cent at their discretion.
Okay, is there a second?
I second that.
Okay, we have had a motion and a second to take the numbers that have been provided by Member Whittingham for all of the funding for Golden Rainbow, Women's Development Center, Access to Health Care, AIDS for AIDS of Nevada AFAN, the Just One Project, Economic Opportunity Board of Clark County, and the CPLC. All those in favor? please.
Can I make, I think that you might have read that incorrectly. We're talking about the last four. You said Golden Rainbow.
I read, this is Chair Miller, I read all of the numbers from the top of the bottom. I just didn't give the numbers since it was, the motion was read with each dollar value.
But, I was saying, just as a point of order, I think we have already voted on Golden Rainbow and the other three at the top, so the conversation that is now on the floor is in relationship to the last four, AFAN, Just One, EOB, and CPLC.
So you offer, so Member Haddad, would you please read your motion again so we can get a second and then we can get a proper vote?
She stated it correctly.
Happy to. If we could go back over to that other screen, I'm sorry. Right now I'm looking at the vote.
I believe this is in reference to the four agencies that were at minimum risk.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes,
Sorry,
ma'am.
that just the values were on my screen before that I was reading off of. Is there any way to bring that? If you'd like me to repeat the motion. Sorry.
Colleen Duergar, Neighborhood Services, can we put the values back up for the board?
There you go.
Okay. So you'd like me to repeat my motion?
Yes, for the minimum risk, please, ma'am. Thank you.
No problem. So Patricia Haddad, so recognizing that with the remaining funds after funding Golden Rainbow Women's Development Center and access to health care at the indicated values that have already been approved, using the remaining funds, I move to fund AFAN at $319,783.33, Just One Hopwa Assistance Program at $319,783.33, EOB Hopwa at $125,000, and the CPLC Lucis Program at $319,783.33, with the remaining cent being worked out by staff. That's my motion. Thank you.
Okay. And is there a second?
I second it. Dave Marlin.
Okay, it has been moved and seconded. Is there any further discussion? Member Thomas? Lights off, lights off, okay. With that, we will take this, we have a motion and a second for the minimum risk agencies, which would be Aid for AIDS of Nevada, the Just One Project, and Economic Opportunity Board of Clark County, and the CPLC for HOPWA, with the numbers presented by Member Whittingham. Please signify by saying aye and a hand vote if you are in favor of this motion. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed?
Opposed.
Member Conyers, can you confirm your vote? Whether it was an aye or an nay, I apologize. Just to confirm the votes, Linda Burks and Member Paola are nay votes, correct?
Correct.
The motion passes.
Okay. right. Okay, that was bad. All right, we will move on to, this is Chair Miller. We'll move on to, I don't see a break in here. Can we take a? I mean, I'm the chair, I could call a break, right? Okay, can we, I think we need a break. There's a short one. It is 1 o'clock straight up, because the next one is going to be a little lengthy. So at this time, I'd like to call a short recess so we could take just a little break, get some water. It is 1 o'clock. If we can be back at 1:06, that'd be fantastic. I'll call us adjourned and gavel us back in at 1:06. Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to go ahead and gavel us back in. Our member can join us in a second, because I know we have a lot to get back through. Okay. This is Chairman Miller of the Community Development Recommending Board. I'm going to gavel us back in so we can go back to agenda item number 6. Agenda item 6 is discussion for possible action regarding the scoring and recommended allocations for fiscal years 2024, 2025, and 2025-2026 funding for the Community Development Block Grant CDBG. I believe there's 29 in total, and I believe our budget is for $775,000. I will open the floor for the discussion of how we'd like to handle this every year. This is a challenging area. There's always a need, and we want to do what's in the best of our community. But we always know that there's always a small pot of money. So I will entertain any opening conversation of consideration and thought on this. So please take an opportunity to look at the budget, the scoring sheets, and thank you so much for all of your work and participation as we got through our HOPWA applications. Does anybody like to begin the conversation? The chair recognizes Co-Chair McKnight.
Member McKnight, I'd like to just, in trying to reduce things, unless there's a member on the board that feels differently, that anybody that falls under the medium risk category, that we just, because of the amount of funds that we've got, that we just go ahead and move the line to the first 23, well, 1 through 23, if that makes sense.
Is that a motion?
That is a motion.
That is a motion by Co-Chair McKnight, based off the amount of what that's available and the risk assessment, and from 29 to 23. Member Burks, your thoughts?
I would like to second that.
Okay, we have had a motion on the floor, and we've had a second of limiting what we review from ranks of 1 to 23 out of the 29 applicants. 1 through 23 all have received a low-risk assessment. So at this time, I'll open the floor for discussion. Member Marlin and Member, well, if Mike is there. So still Member Burks and Member Winningham. Member Marlin, please go first.
I certainly agree with Member McKnight, but I just wanted to advise that that would leave $33,695 if we went per applicant for the rest, just to help us understand some scale.
Okay, Member Whittingham.
And thanks, Madam Chair, Member Whittingham. And that might have answered part of my question, or maybe my question, because I was going to ask the staff if they were to calculate the amount requested for 1 to 23, what that is, what the total amount is, and let's look and see how that compares with the total amount that we have.
And this is Melanie Riley with the Department of Neighborhood Services. While Tim is calculating that, as a reminder, for CDBG, we do not go less than $50,000 per agency. So that is the bottom amount, the least amount that we will award any agency. So keep that in mind as well.
Thank you. Thank you, C. So the lowest amount is either 0 or 50,000, correct? Okay, thank you very much for that clarification. Okay, I'm doing some calculation for us right now. If you look at your screens, as we prepare for this discussion. Member Whittingham, are you seeing your number, sir?
No, I'm sorry, what's the total? Is that 2 million? No, I'm sorry. What's the number?
I believe it's am I reading that properly? $2,643,438.48. If we did just 1 through 23.
So Tim Wilson, Grant Program Coordinator, the total amount with just the top 23 organizations would be the $2,643,438.48.
Okay.
With the deficit of 1.9.
Yeah, with still the
Roughly,
deficit.
yes.
Okay, so with that in mind, there's still a need for further discussion in terms of the amount allocated for each. I just wanted to make sure that did not exceed, well, if it exceeded our amount allowed, how much that was, and what we have to work with within that. But so yes, just for me, I would agree with the suggestion from the co-chair to stay within the margins of 1 to 23, and then we can maybe work further on each of those as per the conversation and the discussion.
Okay. Member Haddad, I see your light on, and Member Burks.
Thank you. Patricia Haddad, just a quick question. If I recall correctly, Iron Sharpens Iron Mentoring did not provide a presentation. Does that impact their qualifications as far as the requirements for grant application at this point? Should we still be considering them per the process?
This is Melanie Riley, Department of Neighborhood Services. We did have this discussion, and since they did not present, they did not fully meet our application requirements. So we would not be wanting to fund them in this cycle.
Mm-hmm. So we can take the $50,000 off for them?
Okay. Member Burks?
Actually, I don't have a question anymore, sorry.
Okay. Co-Chair McKnight?
I'd like to amend my proposal to include the Iron Sharpen Iron Mentor along with the medium risk. I'd like to make that motion.
Okay, make the motion, so that would be 22, correct? Instead of 23.
Correct.
Okay. Member Whittingham? Oh, okay. I'm always looking for the red light. That always helps me try to keep us in line. Okay, so we have a motion on the floor with the exception of Iron Sharpens Iron, taking us to 22 agencies which fall under low risk for consideration. Is there a second?
I'll second. Patricia Haddad, I'll second.
Okay, so we have a second. Is there a discussion? This is Chair Miller. I'd like to offer a thought. This is usually the group of agencies that we have always the largest presentations, and the total available point total is usually 200 points. And I would suggest you look at the total score of the points and the spacing in between, and I might make a suggestion of the total score of anything of 180 and up for consideration. With this particular grant, you either have to zero fund, or the lowest fundage you can provide is $50,000. Just a thought as we work together through this process to fund. Just a thought. But the conversation is to have all of the information to make the wisest decision of what we do with this funding and these agencies. Okay. Chair recognizes Member Powell.
Member Lena Paola, just concerned if we move forward with this motion, we're still negative. We're at 1.819 deficit.
Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't hear your whole thing, I'm sorry.
If we continue with 1 through 20, the 22, at these values, we're at almost 1.9 deficit.
If we did 180 and up, this is Chair Miller, if we did 180 and up, potentially, where would we be
Okay.
in terms of score?
So, to the left? To the left? Yes, some, yes. Okay. So, we're closer to the amount.
And then I agree, let's change the motion to include item. Okay. Can I also now amend my motion?
Yes,
Go
you
ahead.
may, Co-Chair McKnight.
Go ahead and include items 1 through 15.
14.
Or 14, sorry about that. Yes, 1 through 14 be the only ones we consider at this time, and the balance of 15 through 29 not be discussed.
Okay, we have a motion on the floor based on Member Jackson.
Hi. I would like to see I'd like to see the Neon Museum funded. They're the only arts organization that came to the presentation, and I just feel strongly about the education component as well as the fact that they're giving free access to children for STEAM. And I just think it's really important for children to understand the history of the community that they're living in, and the Neon Museum does that. So I know they're below the threshold, but I would like to see them funded. Thank you.
Thank you, Member Jackson. Member Haddad.
Sorry. So I would second Member McKnight's updated motion. And then definitely, I think in response to Member Jackson, definitely appreciate the work that the Neon Museum does. I think one concern that I had with their particular presentation was how they were tracking City of Las Vegas residents. So they were speaking directly to supporting schools that are within the city limits, but that does not necessarily translate to individuals being served, being residents of the city. And so I had a concern with that, and that they weren't able to necessarily articulate sort of how they might go about tracking from there. I did have a concern. So I would second Member McKnight's to look directly at the agencies currently ranked 1 through 14 on our list for further discussion to get a little bit closer to our available dollar amount.
All right, so we have a motion on the floor. Even with, thank you very much for your sharing our love for art and supporting the students in STEM. Member Jackson, we have a motion on the floor by Member Co-Chair McKnight to and only discuss ranked organizations 1 through 14, and seconded by Member Haddad. Is there any further discussion? If you are in support of that, please signify by voice and by hand.
Excuse me, Chairman, this is Deputy City Clerk Brian Carroll. Just clarification, you're suggesting we're going to talk about these top items, the top funders, or are we talking about zero funding the particular bottom amount? Just want clarification on what the motion is exactly.
Okay, the motion is that based on the scoring, that would be 1 through 14, and the dollar amount. Who am I talking? Do you see who I'm talking to? Oh, there you go. Based off of our availability of budget and funding, since it's either zero funding or 50,000, that ranked scores of 1 through 14. We'd like to discuss those for funding of our conversation, 1 through 14. Is that correct? Did I get that correct, Co-Chair McKnight? And Member Haddad seconded it.
And zero funding for the rest from 15 on to 29. I think that's what the staff is asking.
Yes.
Yes.
I believe that's correct.
And sorry, Deputy Secretary Brian Carroll again. And if we are talking about zero funding any particular groups, we would want to name them for the record, for the public doesn't have access in the moment for what these numbers are. Just clarification.
Yes. And so after we would do the vote, would I read each one and make the statement of lack of funding, correct?
Ideally, prior to the motion, so that we understand what the motion is to zero fund these applications.
Okay.
Yeah, so it's on the actual motion itself. Yes, thanks.
Okay. So would I need to have Co-Chair McKnight add that to that motion?
That worked for us, yes.
Okay, thank you for the clarification. Member McKnight.
Okay, this is Member McKnight for naming off the applicants. Just going down from the list, items 15 through 29. The Just One project, zero funding. Iron Sharpened Iron Mentors, zero funding. Boys and Girls Club of Southern Nevada, zero funding. I'm going to say it wrong. Fuentes. Zero funding. Hope Link of Southern Nevada, zero funding. Vegas Stronger, zero funding. CPLC Nevada Inc., zero funding. Access of Healthcare Network, zero funding. Neon Museum, zero funding. Goodwill Industries of Southern Nevada, zero funding. Paths Forward, zero funding. Family and Child Treatment of Southern Nevada, zero funding. Pink Chair Hookers for Jesus, zero funding. Paths Forward, zero funding. Shadadi Refuge Homes Community Development Corp., zero funding.
Shahada, I second.
Okay, so we have had a motion and a seconded for 15 to 29, zero funding, but a discussion for ranked positions 1 through 14 for our discussion for funding for CDBG funds. All those in favor, please signify with hand and voice by saying aye.
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 All those opposed, signify by saying nay.
Nay.
Abstain.
And there's one abstention, I believe, correct?
The motion passes.
All righty. Okay. Let's get back to the number screen. Okay. So that is, and I will read those organizations into the record. Foster Kinship, Nevada Partnership for Homeless Youth, Help Us Southern Nevada, St. Jude's Ranch for Children, Jewish Family Service Agency, Catholic Charities of Southern Nevada, Helping Hands of Vegas Valley, Olive Crest, Communities in School Nevada, Family Promise of Las Vegas, Sunrise Children's Foundation, Salvation Army, YMCA Southern Nevada, and Desert Springs Community Resource Center. If you look at their total scores, their risk assessments, and the totals. And then if you'll look on the column under Co-Chair McKnight's and where we are in terms of deficit, again, the budget is for $775,000. We either zero fund or the lowest, I believe, is $50,000. Is that correct, City staff?
Tim Glisson, Grant Program Coordinator, correct. 50,000 would be the least.
Thank you very much, and can see. So, Member Lathrop, if you would like to start the conversation.
Yeah, I have two items I'd like to bring out. In the future, and again, this is my first time in this stage of the funding situation, I understand we have a minimum limit. I would like to talk in the future about a maximum limit in terms of some of the funding situations here and how that relates to future stuff. The second item, which is more about what we're doing right now, there are some agencies in this list that if they don't get funding from the city, could very well do funding from other resources. They're large and they have multiple funding resources, and they do a really good job where this voting that we're doing right now is not critical for their existence. There's some other agencies, I think, that do very important work that this would be a little more critical and a little more impactful in terms of the overall mission of the agency. That's a little bit hard for me where I'm sitting right now to determine. And I think I was talking to another board member here. Well, you know, $200,000 for Helping Hands Valley, that's a lot of money. They do great work. $200,000 for the Salvation Army, you know, that's a tremendous organization, and I've seen them really help a lot in people transitioning out of homelessness with their career situation. But I think there are some of these larger amounts go to agencies where lack of funding from the city would not be a complete stop for what they're doing. And I'll end by saying that I actually like Member Haddad's idea of going to those particular agencies that have alternate funding sources and zeroing out their amount to the point that we could have an impact on the overall budget and have the city investments in the community go to the people who are also doing great work, but where that amount of money would have some impact on their overall mission.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Member Powell?
Yes, Member Paola. Just looking at the minimum of 50 for the first 5 and giving 40% to 6 and 7, 50 to 8, 50 to 9, and basically 50 to the rest. We're at 778, 450, 680. So we're pretty close if we go that route. Maybe we could put that into the spreadsheet. 50,000 for foster kinship, 50,000 for Nevada Partnership, 50,000 for Help of Southern Nevada. Sorry. And then for them, $68,456.78. 80,000 for the next one. And then 50,000, I'm sorry, I'm not sure which one we're at. So 8, so Olive Crest 50, 9, Communities in School of Southern, Communities in School 50,000. Family Promise 50,000. Sunrise Children 50. And then when we get to Salvation Army, it was 80, which is that 40% again. And then the next two at 50. $778, $456, $80. I mean, $778, excuse me, $456, $80. So maybe if we take those other two that were at 40 down to maybe 35% and see where that is, I could do those in a moment. Oh, or we can make 68, 65 and then Helping Hands.
I think the lowest we can do is 50,000. Isn't that correct, staff?
Yeah, no, 65,000, we were saying. 65 is more than 50.
There we go. That's a thought.
We're there with that reduction, huh?
We're right. What member, this is Chair Miller, what member Paola just offered with the percentage reduction, it puts us right at 775,000.
Yeah. Can you go down to the total for me? Let me see the total. Okay. Yeah, so we're there.
I do have a question for staff because I believe member Lathrop brought up a good point. I don't know, is this a letter that I write to to someone about the maximum for this particular grant that they can ask for, or is that like pie in the sky? You know, saying this is the maximum you can ask for. I mean, I don't mind dreaming, you know, but I think that's a valid point that was brought up. And one of the things I've enjoyed about being on this board is that we've kind of done that sometimes, just kind of threw an idea out there and it kind of took off. So I was just wondering, is that a possibility, or is that just part of their structure and system, I guess?
Melanie Riley with the Department of Neighborhood Services. The only reason that we actually put the minimum award is because we really wanted these agencies to be investing in this partnership, this funding with us, right? We know it takes a lot of work. You need to have a lot of capacity within your agency. So it kind of felt like we were all really investing a little bit more at that 50, which is why we implemented that a few years ago. Mm-hmm. We haven't had an internal discussion about a cap. It's certainly something that we can do with our funding if we decided to do that. I think we leave it open because we want the agencies to tell us what they need to run the program, so we don't want to stifle it too much. Mm-hmm. I think people that we've been in partnership with for a long time sort of has a general idea of the funding amounts that we're awarding. We don't typically award $200,000 to an agency, right, when we have $775,000. But I guess we would almost hate to cap them in case it was a really new, innovative program that we all felt was really a big need gap in the community. And if that was funding that they really needed to do that, we would always be willing to fund less agencies if we thought there was a really strong, innovative program that needed a little bit more than our typical award.
All right, thank you. That's why we're here to have discussions. You gotta ask. They can't eat us. We can just ask. Member Whittingham, sir.
If I just add to the conversation, and I hear the city staff reasoning, but when you look at the number of companies that are permitted to apply for, knowing fully well that we have such a limited fund, it seems that there may be a need for a good discussion about limit so that we can divide the limited fund as broadly across the board as possible. And so I think that the original conversation about capping the limit is a very good one. Or is it a case where we would limit the amount of applicant because we only have this amount of funds? So you have 30 people applying thinking that they have a chance when in fact we don't have enough funds to spread across. So it would be perhaps good, recommended that the city consider either reasonable putting a cap on it because there's a need, and the conversation for, or the reason for doing the justification is that as much as all of these organizations are doing a fantastic job to spread the wealth around as even as possible, we're going to put a cap on it. And so, since there are a number of other sources that they may have, because it's so limited, we're going to put a cap on this one. Or that because of the limited amount, then restructure the application policy to reduce the number of people who apply for it. So I just want to go back and just add my voice to support the need for some kind of conversation based upon what we're seeing here. And this is my third year on the board, and I think it's maybe time for maybe the city to take a second look at the reasoning for not capping.
Member Jackson and then Member Haddad.
Yes, to speak to Mr. Latham. Is it Latham? Latham? Thank you. You know, I also think that there needs to be kind of some type of vetting in regard to duplication of services, because there's, you know, like there's quite a few organizations that are dealing with youth, but there's also other organizations that are doing, I think, good work that we might be, you know, just eliminating just because we're just looking at the first 14 individuals. And I understand that, but to Mr. Latham's point, some of these organizations are doing very good work and need to be funded, but they're not, because we're just making a automatic decision to fund the first 14.
Member Haddad and then Member Conyers.
Thank you, Patricia Haddad. So a couple of thoughts on sort of both of these conversations. So on the piece around capping, I do think that's a really interesting thought around sort of providing a upper limit for what folks can apply for. Hearing staff's rationale, though, for that not having been in place, I think, you know, it makes me think about sort of that's the actual role of this board, right? And I would think, and part of, you know, some way that we can structure, I don't want to derail this conversation so far, but structuring the conversation is what are what are our priorities within the parameters of the applications that are in front of us? Is that small organizations over large organizations? To Member Lathrop's point, is that, you know, ensuring that we're hitting each of the priority areas, whether that's youth or homelessness or workforce, and sort of setting those parameters for ourselves. I think we want to keep, I would recommend, or I would think that we would want to keep the net wide as to applications that come to us. And I think organizations are pretty clear. Just because you put in an application is no guarantee that you will get funded, right? Most of the time you don't, really. And so keeping a wide enough net for folks to put their applications in, and then this board, which changes year to year, right? And the context in which we're all operating in is changing each time that these applications come before us. So really identifying what those priorities are for this board in this moment in time, and then sort of whittling down from there. That said, I feel fairly comfortable with Member Paolo's recommendation. I had a similar sort of calculation, putting everyone at like 55,000, and you get pretty close for the first 14 organizations. But I'm very open on how we have that conversation if we all feel clear on sort of what we're driving towards and what our priorities are.
Thank you. Member Conyers?
Hi. This is my first year on the board, so is it possible I could get like the amount that we awarded in the last 3 years total for the CBDG? I'm just curious if the amount, how much it has been decreased by per year of this?
This is Melanie Riley, Department of Neighborhood Services. We've been right around 775, maybe 780,000 for the last few years. Because we can only spend 15% of our total CDBG annual award to these public service projects, so we're capped at a HUD regulation level.
Okay, and I guess going on Peter Whittingham's restructuring of this kind of the board decisioning on how they figure out who gets funded, to me, I just feel like when I see this process, I see people that are really good at taking standardized tests versus the ones that are not. So the ones that are not, maybe they have the best impact and they reach the clients, but we don't really know that because we don't look at the surveys of the clients. And I think if we knew directly what clients are helped the most through these different programs, that would be clarity for us to understand, like, are these programs having the impact that they say they are if we don't consider the voices of the people that are getting these services.
I like it. I like it.
And I guess one more point. If we have like new programs coming up, maybe part of a restructuring, you consider longstanding organizations under a category. They're both under the CBDG, but then you have the new ones that are coming up and they're also wanting to make an impact. They're considered under a different category. I don't know if that would be possible because I don't know how a new organization competes with like Salvation Army or the Catholic Charities, you know.
Member Thomas?
Thank you, Kathy Thomas, for the record. Actually, to piggyback, so in our scoring process, you may recall that there's at least a question that says, is this a new or substantially expanded program? And that's there because HUD actually would prefer that CDBG be used to seed projects rather than sustain them. So if we're looking at, in the future, who do we prioritize for funding, if we stayed aligned with the intent that may or may not be relevant in today's context, but for the sake of discussion, the intention was to seed programs rather than sustain them. So that's why you can only use 15% of your whole award on these type of public service programs, because the intention was never to have partners coming back year after year after year for funding, and if this funding cripples their program, it's actually not aligned with the federal intent. These aren't sustaining funds. These are seeding funds to start something that fills a gap in the community or to expand something because the need of the community has grown. So I appreciate this conversation because it's important for us to think about what was the intention and why did HUD put a cap on us? So the feds said you can only use 15% of these dollars because they never intended them to be sustaining dollars.
Thank you. Member Powell?
Yes, and just to piggyback off of that, I noticed the scoring on that. There's only 3-point difference from a new versus an existing. So there's not really a differentiation in scoring for that. So maybe the scoring needs to be reevaluated for that. Maybe a new program versus 1 to 5 years versus long term.
Member Haddad?
Thank you. I love this conversation. I think this is so important to get clear on what the intention is of the funds in the first place and sort of how we all should come together to identify who's at most need. And I think to the point around, Ms. Thomas Gibson's point around seeding new projects versus sustaining ones that have come before this board and that have been traditionally funded by this board. Because it is really difficult when I'm looking at, scoring, thinking about, Meals on Wheels, for example, and I don't mean to call it Catholic Charities in particular, right? But meals, it's like, well, if you don't fund Meals on Wheels, are seniors going to eat, right? Each of these have their own real tension point, right? And so, having some of those other sort of criteria parameters to think about of the sort of ongoing funding versus the sort of larger organizations, I think, and so, okay, so I would propose as a starting point, in addition, to what we're seeing here, to the point around sort of smaller organizations versus larger, newer, and sort of expansions versus ongoing. I'm going to name a couple to fully fund and then sort of see where we land, and then maybe we can have a discussion with the rest of the organizations and their requests as well. So give fully fund for foster kinship. I think fully fund for Jewish Family Service Agency. And then fully fund for Family Promise. I would say fully fund for Desert Springs Community Resource Center. And then I would also add I'm sorry, I jumped around. I would also add Sunrise Children's Foundation in there as well to fully fund, but I'm open.
Family Promise is already full.
Sunrise Children's Foundation?
No, Family.
Yep.
They're fully funded. They only requested 50.
Yes. Sorry. Okay, so then we've got foster kinship, Jewish Family Services, Family Promise, Sunrise Children's Foundation, Desert Springs. And then where does that leave us?
Also not funding the other ones.
What you got to say? You want to see? Hats off to the people doing spreadsheets in real time. It's not easy. Okay. That's
Tim Glesson, Grant Program Coordinator. It should be calculated.
Thank you. Thank you. Seriously, thank you. So looking at that, saying that that's, less than half, I would feel comfortable moving forward with fully funding these and then having a discussion with how to split up the funds between the rest of the organizations from there. I think my rationale is thinking about, again, the sort of expansion or enhancement of a new program, smaller organization, and supporting some
folks that are really in-depth in the community here. I can make a motion if we're ready for that.
Can we put 50 in each of the empty boxes?
Remember, Paolo, you're saying put 50 in all in the remaining boxes? Yeah, because that's the lowest we could go.
That would take 30 from one and 15 from the other, so that's 45, so we should be pretty close. Actually, we might have a little extra left over. My mic is off.
Is that the amount that's left over?
Negative.
Or over? That's what's over.
Can you scroll back up a little bit? Could we take that from the lowest scoring of the
Yeah,
ones
I
we're
was
fully
thinking
funding?
taking it off of the supporting seniors in the neighborhood. But, I mean, we're splitting hairs because there's only like a 5-point difference for their scores. Can you scroll up again? Sorry.
Okay.
I would say senior.
All right. Member Burks, I see your microphone is lit. Do you have anything to add to the conversation? We have three examples in front of us.
I mean, I like Lena's and also Ms. Haddad, but I would say I would like to motion that we go with the last one, Mrs. Haddad, her example.
We just need to get 2 more thousand off.
No, they got it.
Yeah. Okay. They took it off. Okay, the last one. Okay.
Pardon me?
I think she made a motion.
Okay, I didn't hear the whole motion. I heard something and.
I wanted to motion that we accept Member Haddad's proposal.
Okay, we have a motion on the floor of the 3 choices that are on our screens. A motion to accept the proposal presented by Member Haddad. Is there a second?
Excuse me, Chair.
Yes,
This
ma'am.
is Deputy City Clerk Vanessa Chavez-Holman. We need the list of the numbers as well as the names
Okay,
of the
you want me to
programs
read?
in the motion.
Okay, so
Please, thank you.
I'm gonna throw it back to our lovely member, Member Burke. You need to read from the agency and the total of your motion by Member Haddad.
Okay. Foster kinship, can you move, this is Linda Burks, sorry. Yes, thank you. I motion that we go with Member Haddad's proposal, which is foster kinship at $70,000, Nevada Partnership for Homeless Youth at $50,000, Help of Southern Nevada at $50,000, St. Jude's Children Ranch for Children at $50,000, Jewish Family Service Agency at $77,700, Catholic Charities of Southern Nevada at $50,000, Helping Hands of Vegas Valley at $50,000, Olive Crest at $50,000, Communities in Schools of Nevada at $50,000, Sunrise Children's Foundation at $60,000, the Salvation Army at $50,000, YMCA of Southern Nevada at $50,000, Desert Springs Community Resource Center at $67,300.
Family problems, yeah.
Did we skip one?
Did I skip one?
Yeah, you
I think you skipped
Family promise.
Okay. I
Family
find
Promise.
it. What number is it? I'm sorry. Oh, Family Promise of Las Vegas at 50,000.
Okay, thank you. Is
And the
there-
total for that? Okay.
Sorry.
Okay. Thanks.
Okay, is there a second?
This is Member Whittingham. I so second.
Okay, so there has been a motion and a second for the proposal provided by Member Haddad that was put on a motion by Member Burks and seconded by Member Whittingham. Is there any further discussion on the matter? Member Conyers and Member Bailey? Oh, no. Okay, lights off, okay. Seeing none, if you are in favor of this motion, please signify by saying aye, and also with the hand motion so our clerk can see us. Aye. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any nays? Any abstentions?
Marlin abstains.
This is Member Lathrop. I'm recusing myself on this vote.
The motion passes.
Alrighty, motion passes. Okay, thank you. Okay, we move on to agenda item number 7, citizens' participation. Public comment during this portion of the agenda must be limited to matters within the jurisdiction of the board. No subject may be acted upon by the board unless that subject is on the agenda and is scheduled for action. If you wish to be heard, please come forward and give your name for the record. The amount of discussion on any single subject, as well as the amount of time any single speaker is allowed, may be limited. Is there any citizen participation? Seeing none, ladies and gentlemen, it has been an honor and a pleasure to work with you. The chair recognizes Member Whittingham.
Madam Chair, thank you so very much. And I suspect that my comments may fall in properly as a comment from the board, as a board member, or if it so pleases the city attorney, maybe fall in the category of a citizen's comment. But I just wanted to say this from my part. This is my 3rd year on this committee. I retired from the Los Angeles Police Department in 2018, came to this wonderful city after serving LA for just over 30 years as a police officer, retired at the rank of captain, and I came to the city and just decided to commit myself to volunteer and being involved in the city, and this has been such a wonderful opportunity for me just to serve in this capacity as a board member and for the past 3 years. And this will be it for me. I will not be available for volunteering in this capacity in the coming years. But I just want to make sure that I put on record how much rewarding it has been for me and serving with some of the members who are repeat members and some of the new members. But it has been a pleasure, and thanks for council members, Knudsen and Victor Seaman, who have given me the opportunity to serve, certainly with the support of the mayor, and it has been such a wonderful experience for me as an individual to be a part of this committee, and thank you so very much for the opportunity to speak. Thanks.
Thank you, and thank you for your participation, Member Whittingham, and thank you, every one of you, for providing your time and your dedication to your community, because we have to remember that we are the community and we have that responsibility. And I wish you all a safe drive. And as your chairwoman at this time, I will entertain a motion. Let me check my time. I'm good.
Motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn, and do I have a second? Second. We will stand adjourned until we come back for our annual review. City staff, thank you. City attorney, everyone. Madam and Mr. Clerk, we appreciate you. We stand adjourned. Thank you.
It was an honor serving you. Okay. Nice work.